So hello and welcome to this NPTEL course entitled Trauma and Literature, where we're looking at Joseph Heller's novel Catch-22. So we'll begin to skip certain sections and look at certain selected passages from the novel. So we are looking at chapter 12 at this point of time, and this should be on your screen, the specific section we are reading today. So we just picked the section, and the reason why we're picking the section and the subsequent sections is because we are trying to see how the representation of post-traumatic stress disorder happens in this novel. It's a funny representation. It's got a lot of dark humor, and it has a carnivalesque quality about it. And obviously, which makes it all the more disturbing in a certain sense, because it's not really, it doesn't have the solemnity of a tragedy. It doesn't have the grandeur of a tragedy, right? What it has instead is a very flattened out effect of comicality. So these are people who obviously are very, very traumatized. They are actually very, very sick. They are mentally very, very unwell, and yet they have a very carnivalesque take on life. And the quality of comedy in this novel is interesting because it has a very strange proximity to death, right? So it's always very, very close to the death-like quality. So, people die and people make fun about it. So again, it's a very carnivalesque representation. So there's no sort of straight signified system. So they have a image of death which can be represented in a funny way, in a comic way. So that just makes it more postmodernist as well, in a very dark comic way. So this should be on the screen, talking about, and the reason why I've chosen this is because there is this very godless quality about this novel, and by godless I mean centerless. There is no rationale behind the activities in this novel, and that's the reason why paradoxes play such a big role, such an important role. The whole production of paradoxes becomes a very key quality of representation, a very key instrument of representation, right? So we need to sort of look at the ontology of the centerlessness, the very quality of centerlessness in this novel. There is no center, there's no rationale. So it has it's a very absurdist universe that we are looking at, this reasonless universe, and that's almost becomes a comic representation. Okay, so this is on your screen. This is chapter 12 of Joseph Heller's Catch-22, where Woserain says, this is the second paragraph, the enemy retorted Woserain with weight precision is anybody who's going to get you killed no matter which side he's on, and that includes Colonel Cathcart. And don't you forget that, because the longer you remember it, the longer you might live. So, it's about who is the enemy in the war and who is a friend in the war. And, he talks about, Woserain talks about how the enemy is anyone who's going to get you killed. So it can be someone on your side who just puts you in a front line and gets you killed. So that person becomes the enemy. So again, we're looking at a very postmodernist take on the friend-enemy binary. So the binary basically dissolves away. It doesn't exist. So we have this entanglement of anyone who gets you killed happens to be an enemy. But Clevinger did forget it, and now he was dead, right? So again, we look at a representation of death over here in a way which is almost comic, and look at the brevity of representation. So Woserain is giving some kind of a sermon about enemy. Whoever you should remember, whoever wants to get you killed is your enemy. So you should always remember it, because the longer you remember it, the better chance you have of staying alive. And then you have the sentence, Clevinger forgot it, and now he was dead. So again, it's almost a pseudo-serious, almost a comical representation. At the time, Clevinger was so upset by the incident that Woserain did not dare tell him that he had also been responsible for the epidemic of diarrhea that had caused the other unnecessary postponement. Milo was even more upset by the possibility that someone had poisoned the squadron again, and he came bustling fretfully to Woserain for assistance. Please find out from Corporal Snark if you put laundry soap in the sweet potatoes again, he requested furtively. Corporal Snark trusts you and will tell you the truth, and if you give him your word, he won't tell anyone else. As soon as it tells you, come and tell me. So, I've chosen this paragraph deliberately because I think it does a lot in terms of reflecting the representation in the entire novel. It is full of paradoxes, it's full of dark humor, and it's also full of this very centerless quality, right? Very, very postmodern centerless quality. So And look at the quality of predicament over here. Look at the quality of danger over here. So normally in a war novel, you think about, you know, people getting bombed, people getting fired at, people getting decimated by very, very modern artillery or, you know, weapons of destruction. But instead, what we have over here is someone putting a laundry soap in sweet potatoes, right? And again, that's it's almost making a fun of war in a sense, but the whole domestic quality of danger, or the domesticity of danger over here, is very deliberately done, because it talks about the very unglamorous representation of war. That in a war, it's not just about people fighting each other in a magnificent battlefield. It's also about the bureaucratic hassles. It's also about the daily routines of survival, which can also get you killed. So the focus shifts from bombs to potatoes, from bombs to laundry soap, right? And again, that makes it, there's an anticlimactic quality about it. There's a lot of Bathos about it. Bathos, Bathos, Bathos is anticlimax. So it's a fall in grandeur, a fall in seriousness. And this fall is consistently portrayed in the novel, and that is very, you know, deliberately done, because what we get to see is a very, very unglamorous, very dark, very flat representation of the war in this novel. So please find out if we put laundry soap in the sweet potatoes, because that's getting people killed. And then it is also told to Westerain, you know, just tell him, find out from him and tell him you'll not tell anyone else. You'll keep this a secret for your life. And as soon as you know it, you come and tell me. So again, we have some kind of a logical construction followed by a deconstruction, right? So the first sentence says, you know, Colonel Snock trusts you and will tell you the truth. If you give him your word, you won't tell anyone else. So that sentence sounds serious. Give him your word, you won't tell anyone else. You know, it's solemn, serious, it has some degree of grandeur. And the very next sentence says, as soon as it tells you, come and tell me. So that's Bathos. It's a fall in grandeur, right? So this little section basically reflects the culture of the novel, the narrative structure of the novel, the narrative quality, the narrative mood of this novel. Of course, I put laundry soap in the sweet potatoes. Corporal Snock admitted to Westerain, that's what you asked me to do, isn't it? Laundry soap is the best way. So, you know, it's the best way to get people killed, laundry soap and potatoes. And then Westerain says, he comes back and says, he swears to God he didn't have a thing to do with him. Westerain reported back to Milo. So we can see this complete play with logic, this complete fabulation with logic, deconstruction of logic. And every sentence is a deconstruction of the previous sentence. Every mood is a deconstruction of the previous mood. So, you know, Westerain goes to this Corporal Snock, and Corporal Snock tells him, of course, I put laundry soap. You asked me to do it, and that's the best way to kill people. And Westerain comes back to Milo and says, well, he swears to God he had nothing to do with it. And so he swears to God he didn't have a thing to do with it. Westerain reported back to Milo. Milo pouted dubiously. Dunbar says there is no God. So this again becomes a very key sentence in a novel. Dunbar says there is no God. So there is this godless, centerless quality that is being depicted, or almost foregrounded, not just depicted, foregrounded, that comes to the surface. There was no hope left. By the middle of the second week, everyone in the squadron began to look like Hungry Joe, who was not scheduled to fly, and screamed horribly in his sleep. Again, I mean, screaming horribly in the sleep is a very clear case of post-traumatic stress disorder. You're haunted by your nightmares, you're haunted by your dreams, which are obviously terrible and have a deep, scarring psychological effect on you. But look at the way in which that feeling of being haunted, a feeling of being attacked mentally is being depicted. Everyone in the squadron began to look like Hungry Joe, who was not scheduled to fly and screamed horribly in his sleep. So you have a certain mood which is prepared, that he was screaming horribly in his sleep, and you're supposed to feel sorry for him. And look at the very next sentence. He was the only one who could sleep. Again, it's a flattening. So on one sentence you have someone who's having nightmares, someone who's screaming in his sleep, and you have a certain kind of response to that. And the very next sentence says he was the only one who could at least sleep. So in a certain sense, it's giving a very, very, very dark representation of the sleeplessness in this entire yard. I mean, this whole ward is an insomniac ward. I mean, no one is about to sleep, no one is able to sleep. But we have someone screaming in his sleep, and that becomes a positive thing. That's the best thing available. So it's a very relativistic, pluralistic, polyphonic universe. Polyphonic is many voices, and there's a very clear Carnivalistic quality. So you have a construction of logic and followed by a deconstruction, and all the logical orders begin to sort of consume each other in very, very sort of almost cannibalistic way. So it's like a cannibalism of logic. They're sort of logic eat each other, and we have a sort of logicless quality about the whole thing. So someone's screaming horribly in his sleep, and then we are told at least he could sleep. No one else could even sleep. All night long, men moved through the darkness outside their tents like tongueless wraiths with cigarettes. So very spectral representation. You have sort of images of men walking outside the tents with cigarettes, tongueless wraiths. So tongueless again signifies silence in a very, very sort of organic, corporeal way. The tongues have been chopped off almost. So silence is something not peaceful silence, but silence has an amputative quality. Silence has a wounded quality, and we have this wounded men with cigarettes outside the tents, walking like specters, walking like ghosts. So it's very ghostly quality. In the daytime, they stared at the bomb line in futile, drooping clusters, or at the still figure of Doc Denica sitting in front of the closed door of the medical tent beneath the morbid hand-lettered sign, right? So the doctor sign is a morbid hand-lettered sign. They began to invent humorless, glum jokes of their own and disastrous rumors about the destruction awaiting them at Bologna. So Bologna in Italy is where the whole chapter is so set, and they're about to go there, and they're inventing jokes, humorless jokes. And again, humorless, it depicts a sense of hollowness. The jokes are hollow. There's no content in the jokes. There's no humor in the jokes to sort of sustain them. And they begin to invent those humorless jokes of their own. And disastrous rumors, lies, again, lies, fabrications, fabulations are being spread, manufactured about the destruction awaiting them at Bologna. Wolserain sidled up drunkenly to Colonel Con at the officers' club one night to kid with him about the new Lepage gun that the Germans had moved in. What Lepage gun? Colonel Con inquired with curiosity. The new 344mm Lepage glue gun, Wolserain answered. It glues the whole formation of planes together in midair. Colonel Con jerked his elbow free from Wolserain's clutching fingers and startled affront. "Let go of me, you idiot!" he cried out furiously, glaring with vindictive approval as Nately leaped upon Wolserain back and pulled him away. "Who is a lunatic anyway?" Colonel Cathcart chortled merrily. "That's the man who made me give a medal to after Ferreira. He had me promote him to captain, to remember. It serves you right." So again, this takes a sort of satirical dig at the politics of hierarchy in the army. So everyone's a mad person here. Everyone's mentally very, very ill and disturbed, and that just becomes a comical thing. Okay, so and then we have this report from Bologna that there's disaster waiting for you. The Germans are waiting with a new gun, and it'll just kill everyone. And then Nately, Captain Black, all of the people come in and they address a crowd of people, army who are waiting, and they just say, "I just got a call from Colonel Con. Do you know what they've been waiting for you at Bologna?" They've got waiting for you at Bologna. Haha! They've got a new Lepage glue gun. It glues the whole formation of planes together in mid-air. Now, what this section does is that how someone manufactures a lie, spreads a rumor, and that becomes truth, right? So in a very interesting way, you find that the quality of truth, the ontology of truth, the function of truth in this novel, it has a very strong and interesting correspondence with the quality of post-truth we have today. So you just manufacture something and you begin to disseminate it, and everyone starts talking about it, and then it just becomes information, right? So this border between lie information, the border between misinformation and information begins to blur away. It almost doesn't exist in this novel. And now everyone's talking about the German gun. They are waiting with the German gun at Bologna. So the moment you arrive there, they will decimate you. They will fire at you from mid-air with the new artillery they have installed in the planes. "My God, it's true," Wolserain shrieked and collapsed against Nately in terror. "There is no God," answered Dunbar calmly, coming up with a slight stagger. Hey, give me a hand with him, will you? I've got to get him back in his tent. Says who? Says me. Gee, look at the rain. We've got to get a car. Steal Captain Black's car. Said, what's the rain? That's what I always do, right? So again, the godless quality, it just comes. There is no God. It almost has a Nietzschean quality to it, and you begin to expect something, grand and something with a profound depth coming up. But instead, what we have is a discussion about stealing the captain's car, right? So again, we have this very interesting juxtaposition of the tragic and the pathetic, the tragic and the pathetic as well. This anticlimax thing, and this constant juxtaposition, this constant cognitive confusion, shall we say, between the different orders of significance, makes the novel a really interesting and psychological representation of war trauma, because these are people who are clearly unstable. They can't follow a logical narrative. They can't follow a consistent logical narrative, and the inconsistency in logic is reflected in the inconsistent manner of representation, the different moods, the different emotions, which sort of come into each other, cut into each other in ways which are quite carnivalesque in quality. So steal Captain Black's car, said Wasserine. That's what I always do. We can't steal anyone's car. Since we began stealing the nearest car every time we wanted one, nobody leaves the ignition on, right? So again, this is a very ridiculous and almost grotesque representation, because people used to leave the ignition on, and then Wasserine started stealing everyone's car. So now no one leaves the ignition on, so we can't steal the car. Hop in, said Chief White Half-out, driving up drunk in a covered jeep. He waited until they had crowded inside and then spurted ahead with a suddenness that rolled them all over backward. He rode with laughter at their curses. He drove straight ahead when he left the parking lot and rammed the car into the embankment on the other side of the road. The others piled forward in a helpless heap and began cursing him. Again, I forgot to turn, he exclaimed. But careful, will you? Nately cautioned. You better put your headlights on. Chief White Half-out pulled back in reverse, made his turn, and shot away up the road at top speed. The wheels were sibilant on the whizzing black-top surface. Not so fast, urged Knightley. You better take me to a squadron first, so I can help you put him to bed. Then you can drive me back to my squadron. Who the hell are you? Dunbar. Hey, put your headlights on, Knightley shouted, and watch the road. They are on. Isn't worse rain in this car? That's the only reason I let the rest of you bastards in. Chief White Half-out turned completely around to stare into the back seat. Watch the road. Worse rain. Is worse rain in there? I'm here, Chief. Let's go home. What makes you so sure? You never answered my question. You see, I told you he was here. What question? Whatever it was we were talking about. Was it important? I don't remember if it was important or not. I wish to God I knew what it was. Now, this almost has a waiting for Godot quality about it, if you look at it carefully. We have this random conversations coming in, random sentences coming in, and sometimes they're not even connected sentences. Two sentences spoken in different directions and different logical trajectories, and they don't connect, right? So again, the question of God comes in, and they have this profound conversation about God, which can become existential in scope. At the same time, the setting is, in a drunken, officer's jeep. Obviously, someone's driving the car with no headlights on, and he claims to have the headlights on, and everyone is sick or mentally unsettled or, drunk, and the discussion of God takes place, in this setting. So there is a very clear absurdist theater element about this representation, and that's that cognitive complexity, that cognitive confusion is very deliberately done, very deliberately foregrounded, very deliberately dramatized, because that is reflective of the cognitive confusion in the heads of these people, right? So there's no tragedy left. There is no God. That's what we're talking about. Wasserine cried. What makes you so sure? Hey, are you sure your headlights are on? Nately called out. Right, so again, look at the constant mingling between God and headlight. So someone's wanting to know if there is God, and someone says, there is no God. Dunbar says there is no God. And Wasserine says, what makes you so sure? And naturally, the other officer calls out and says to Half-out, are you sure your headlight is on? So are you sure there is God? Are you sure this headlight is on? These two sentences operate parallelly and almost connect and disconnect together, right, in ways which makes the entire conversation quite logicless in quality. They're on, they're on. What does it want from me? It's all this rain on the windshield that makes it look dark from back there. Beautiful, beautiful rain. I hope it never stops raining. Rain, rain, go away. And then there's this nursery rhyme quality which comes in about come again another day. Chief White half-out missed the next turn in the road and ran the Jeep all the way up to the crest of a steep embankment. Rolling back down, the Jeep turned over on its side and settled softly in the mud. There was a frightened silence. Is everyone all right? Chief White half-out inquired in a hushed voice. No one was injured, and I heaved a long sigh of relief. You know, that's my trouble, he groaned. I never listened to anybody. Somebody kept telling me to put my headlights on, but I just wouldn't listen. So again, he had obviously lied about his headlights when he said that those were on, and now he admits those are not on, and he admits that he had made a mistake. And again, this is a tone of seriousness beginning to creep in. I kept telling you to put your headlights on. I know, and I just wouldn't listen, would I? I wish I had a drink. I do have a drink. Look, it's not broken. It's raining in, Nately noticed. I'm getting wet. Chief White half-out got the bottle of rye open, drank and handed it off. Lying tangled up on top of each other, they all drank, but Nately, who kept groping ineffectually for the door handle. The bottle fell against his head with a clunk, and whiskey poured down his neck. He began writhing convulsively. So this is actually a very traumatic situation. And if you take a look at the description over here, they're talking about how they were piled on top of each other in the same way as the corpses of soldiers or dead bodies of soldiers were piled on top of each other. So in effect, they're all dead. Symbolically, they're all dead, and they are sort of piled on top of each other. And they're all drinking. They're having alcohol, a bottle of rye. And the only person who's not drinking is Nately, and the bottle hits him, and he begins to writhe convulsively. So again, the very, very traumatic situation is described over here. And look at the quality of description is obviously suggestive of the claustrophobia, the neurosis, the very state of shock that they all happen to be in. But the signifiers around them are non-military signifiers. They're not really military. So it's not really an artillery attack. It's not really a bombing. It's just a badly driven Jeep and a bottle of rye. So that's the claustrophobia. That's the shock that is being signified and described over here. Just like we had a little while ago, people were about to be killed because someone mixed laundry soap in sweet potatoes. So the entire squadron could be wiped out because of that. Not because of artillery, not because of bombing, but because of mixing detergent soap with potato. Okay, hey, we've got to get out of here, he cried. We'll all drown. Is anybody in there? Asked Clevinger with concern, shining a flashlight down from the top. It's Clevinger, they shouted, and tried to pull him through the window as he reached down to aid them. Look at them, Clevinger exclaimed indignantly to Mac Watt, who sat grinning at the wheel of the stuffed car, lying there like a bunch of drunken animals. You too, Nately, you ought to be ashamed. Come on, help me get them out of here before they all die of pneumonia. So again, pneumonia is a disease that are killing soldiers over here, which sounds comical, which sounds funny and laughable, but it's a very real concern. These are people who actually can die of pneumonia because of the conditions, the terrible, miserable conditions they all are suffering. And again, it's not a glamorous war disease, but then that's a disease which can actually get them killed. That don't sound like such a bad idea, Chief White half-out reflected. I think I will die of pneumonia. So again, pneumonia comes in as a disease that can kill soldiers, which is not something you expect, but then you have it. Why? Why not? Answered Chief White half-out, and they lay back in the mud contentedly with a bottle of rye cuddled in his arms. Oh, now look what he's doing, Clevinger exclaimed with irritation. Will you get up and get in the car so they can all go back to the squadron? We can't all go back. Someone has to stay here to help the chief with the scar. He's signed out of motor pool. Chief White half-out settled back in a staff car with an ebullient, prideful chuckle. That's Captain Black's car, he informed them jubilantly. I stole it from him at the officers' club just now with an extra set of keys he thought he lost this morning. Right, so again, you find how these are things soldiers are doing over here. They're stealing each other's cars, they're stealing captain's car, getting drunk, dying of pneumonia, talking about godlessness. But it's all entangled together in a way which makes it so logicless. And this logiclessness and the absurdity of this entire spectacle and the entire series of events is obviously reflective of the massive logiclessness of the grand spectacle of war. Okay, so I stop at this point today because we see that this kind of logiclessness is something which we find running throughout the novel, and the characters, they don't have a sense of depth, and they all end up being sinister and cynical together. Sometimes it sort of combines together the sinister quality and a cynical quality. And what that reflects is the psychological damage that a war has done on these people, on these people's minds, because we have this Catch-22 situation, which is a novel. The title of the novel, the philosophical framework of the novel, they are sort of stuck in a situation they can't go anywhere from, which is suggestive of a sense of directionlessness, a sense of inertia, a sense of immobility, which characterizes this condition. And that's something which we'll keep saying, and there are morbid representations of it, there's dark humorous representations of it, there are anticlimactic representations of it as well. So there's a deliberate drama of rise and fall, of anticlimax. Anticlimax becomes the instrument of representation, just like paradox is. And all the logical vectors, like I mentioned, all the logical vectors that cut into each other, consume each other, to produce this logicless world, which is inhabited by these really tragicomic soldiers who were just waiting to die of different diseases. So I'll stop at this point today, and we'll continue with this novel through other selected sections in the subsequent sessions. Thank you for your attention.